Hello, hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Testing, testing.
Hey, okay, is your mic gonna work this time, or is it gonna...
Yes, it is. It's my nice mic. It's not my shitty little travel Skype mic, so this should be good.
Okay.
Am I coming through?
Yeah, I think it sounds good so far. Thus far.
Oh, hey, I got it with your coupon code
Oh,
thing.
Destiny. Wow, nice. The 20% off on blue.
Yeah.
Well, what did you think tonight? Who were the big performers?
Well, Bloomberg didn't shit the bed, so that basically makes it a victory for him.
What do you mean by victory for him? I mean, he definitely did better than last time, but that's saying nothing, right? Because his last performance was abysmal.
Yeah, but if he had two back-to-back ones going in, because remember, Super Tuesday is coming up, and that's his first test.
Yeah.
That's a week from today.
I kind of wonder if something that I've seen is that like Bloomberg has an abnormally high number of people who, when asked if they would like if they're sure they're voting for a candidate, he has a lot of people that vote that they're not very sure. It almost seems like I hear the term placeholder used a lot. That basically a lot of people are just like they've heard his name and they're like, yeah, fuck it, I guess seems okay. But that's just because no one else has started campaigning in those areas yet.
Correct. So the simple reality is, if we're looking at the entire Democratic electorate, probably about 40% at minimum, probably don't make a decision on who they're going to vote for till like maybe the week of or less.
Yeah.
At minimum. What that means though is it's bad to have that be your core base, and it's really strong if your core base like decide on you like 3 months ahead of time.
Yeah.
And they're gonna stick ride or die. That is Bernie's strength. That is Biden's strength. That is the weakness of almost every other candidate on that stage.
Sure. I don't know how Biden's strength is going to hold up, though. He's going to win. He should win South Carolina, right? Like, I know that Bernie started to make some pretty big strides towards him, but
yeah,
I think he's still ahead in South Carolina. Go ahead.
So, like, for proportional, like, if let's put this on the air foot. If this was Vermont somehow, and Bernie looked like he was going to barely crawl his way into Vermont, how would we be reacting? We'd be talking about how this would be the death blow to Bernie or something like that.
Yeah.
Biden should not be struggling this hard in South Carolina. Like, most of the other candidates should be like writing off South Carolina as just a loss, accepting it's a loss on their taxes and moving on to Super Tuesday. But the other candidates but there are some candidates that are making plays there. Notably Steyer, which is kind of a weird X factor on all of this because there's so low polling on how effective he is outside of just he's strong in South Carolina. There's a strong seems that momentous swing towards some Bernie stuff. And then from there, it's a whole hodgepodge. It's just like certain polls have like Buttigieg in a strong third. There's some polls that say Steyer's a strong third. There's some polls that say Steyer is second. And so the reality is like, this is momentum. This is indication. It's like that. I could see if Biden wins by double digits, this is going to be a slug out fight between probably Bernie and Biden. And where essentially it becomes a game of is Bloomberg going to bow out and give it to and fight for Biden, or is Bloomberg going to be a spoiler for Biden?
Does Buttigieg have any chance after a big defeat in South Carolina of playing for Super Tuesday? Or
I mean, like, look, if he wins second place somehow on South Carolina, which I think like one obscure, then maybe. But like again, you need momentum. I mean, and to give credit for Buttigieg, he occasionally gets like a small like above like he didn't do terribly in Nevada.
He got delegates, right? A few. Yeah.
I mean, so like the question for tonight is like, will Warren or Klobuchar fight out, stay alive till Super Tuesday? Probably. Everyone seems to have enough of a shoestring budget to at least try to fight it out for a few delegates in a few states. But in terms of like who's gonna have a strong play in California and Texas, it's really only at this point. I mean, I guess in theory there's Steyer, but it's really only at this point Bloomberg, Biden.
Steyer got nothing in the first 3.
Steyer hasn't gotten anything. However, while Klobuchar, Buttigieg, and Warren might start struggling Super Tuesday forward because they have so little money, Steyer actually has a much larger war chest than those three. He might have a far less support, numbers, voters, etc. But this is in a game of like survival. Like if you can just take more punches, it's amazing how long you can last.
Sure. It seems like every play right now, save for a miraculous like arisal of like Pete or a comeback of Biden, it seems like every play right now is for a brokered convention. Like it doesn't seem like anybody can contend with Bernie.
I wouldn't go that far.
You don't think so?
So there's so if you're like so let's everyone here, let's all get into the minds. We are cynical one percenters who basically believe strongly in like moderate politics.
Mm-hmm.
We're not in the global cabal like the communists say, but like we're cynical. We're conservative. We remember the loss of McGovern. We are the Democratic leadership. This is Barack Obama. This is Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
These are various members of the Democratic establishment in power. If Bernie is going in there with like 45 to 48%,
Mm-hmm.
or hell, let's even say he goes in with like 51%. Are you going to fight him for it? No, of course not.
Yeah, of course.
No, of course not.
No, I agree. If he goes in with 45% and you use a broker convention to give it to a moderate, you're destroying your party, I think.
So it gets down to like how low does he have to be? But even then, let's just say he goes in with like 40%, and the next biggest one is like Biden with like maybe 25. Let's just say that. In theory, you could string together enough delegates gets from the other candidates by giving them whatever they want to put Biden over the top. There's a big risk in that. Remember, like these people think long term. You don't get into higher power, politically speaking, without having a decade-long plan.
Yeah.
So the reality is, these people won't destroy the party over that, because that's what would happen. A broker convention would destroy the party, and you could play a lot of like, oh, they'll blame Bernie and all that stuff, and that.
Well, but like,
whatever.
Let's say you get something where Bernie goes with a plurality of delegates, but that plurality is like 35%.
Yeah.
Like, what happens at that point where you don't destroy the party?
So it's based on 538's numbers. He's clear 35, but 35 is the number. I'm playing against the conspiracy theory I've been seeing on Twitter. Like, unless Bernie gets 51%, it's gonna be a broker convention. And the practical reality is, like, if you're a Democratic and power person, you're just gonna sit it out. You're not gonna lose any sleep over, because like you'll be comfortable enough. If Bernie loses, Bernie loses. If he wins, he wins. Like, and like. You win if Bernie gets into the White House because you're a Democrat in power, and you'll still be invited to all the parties. And you'll win if he loses because the socialists will shut up for a term or two. Like that's like they'll just mulligan. They'll just like leave. There might be a few less $1 million in the Democratic Party's war chest, but yeah, Bernie will probably be like maybe a bit kneecapped, but he'll go into the presidency, or the presidential election. If he gets below 35, that's so basically. The only person that benefits from like Bernie going in with like 35 delegates or less, and there being no clear majority after that, is like maybe Warren, but like she is that's her conspiracy theory plot theory claim that I can win as the compromise candidate. That's where like literally people are sharing and splitting, negotiating for delegates and offering jobs and stuff like that.
Sure, but if she goes in with like less than 5% of the delegates, like, that's a hard sell. It feels.
But at that point, it ends up being like you're Bernie, and you say, okay, delegates, I'm gonna go over to Warren and Buttigieg and say, you guys, us three, we'll collectively pick one candidate, and we'll combine and get 51%. Like that, he would just go over to the closest people to him and their delegates and say, and that'd be it. He essentially have to abstain from becoming the candidate chosen, but he would like again, even if you hold the plurality but not the majority, you're still going to execute a lot of political power.
Is there like can you play like moderate math here? So like the moderate math games where you say something like the moderates, maybe like the 3 or 4 moderates got, like 60% of the vote, but like the progressives only got like 35%, and justify that, use that as a justification to like take the plurality away from Bernie and give it to someone else. Do you think that would be like a disastrous?
But remember, these aren't all moderates. Like Biden, like yes, in terms of the wider political sphere, Biden's a moderate. But what we're looking at is there are conservative Democrats and there are right-wing Democrats and left-wing Democrats, and there are centered Democrats. The reality is, are those centrist Democrats that's willing to either lean to whoever they can compromise with Bernie, or are they going to lean with whoever they can compromise with Bloomberg or Biden?
Sure.
So that ends up being what the game is. However, the candidate with the plurality is going to have a stronger negotiating arm. So the reality is, in terms of like there will be a left-wing unless Bernie dies in the next 6 months. Or something else of that tier, there's going to be a left of center candidate, and Bernie's people will have a key role in deciding that. Outside of if the Democratic establishment went full on, we are going to burn down the building, then share it, which I highly doubt would not happen. That gets into weird like hyper Twitter conspiracy theories sort of thing. That's not going to happen. These are rational actors. So if Bernie has a plurality but not the majority, he and Warren and probably some Pete delegates, maybe some Biden delegates, will sit down. They'll pick someone, which might be like Sherrod Brown or Warren or I don't know, Beto O'Rourke. Who knows? They'll pick some moderate that they can agree on. So like Bernie will get a stronger single-payer healthcare system, but there'll be more, I don't know, something else. Who knows? But there will, like, we've already crossed that bridge. There's going to be a strong left-wing movement going into the Democratic convention, short of Bernie Sanders dying or being assassinated or saying the N-word on live television.
Sure.
Again, it seems to be that unless they quote Democratic moderate, like, yeah, in theory, if Bloomberg's math is right, yeah, he could win, just sweep Super Tuesday if Bloomberg's theory of the case is correct.
Which doesn't seem to be what's happening. I don't think
Yes, based on all the polling, it indicates it's wrong.
Yeah.
However, in theory, in the pure realm of theoreticals, like if advertisement at a certain level works, it's gonna create something, and thus that something might create a strong victory on Super Tuesday.
If advertisement of a certain level worked like that, wouldn't we have expected to see Steyer take off a lot more than he has? Like, Bloomberg spent only twice as much as him. Like,
I mean, sure, but but that's twice as much as a lot. Like, if I could stream twice as many hours as you,
twice as much as a lot, but he has like orders of magnitude more support. It's not like he's just got like twice as much support as Steyer. Like Bloomberg is like everybody's talking about him, and Steyer is like, why haven't you dropped yet?
So, so the real answer would be that Bloomberg has much more name recognition than Steyer, far more. Like even before this election. I imagine if we polled this audience just through the simple perspective of Bloomberg News and Bloomberg's tenure in New York, he has a much stronger name recognition, and he's recognized as a political leader. Steyer only became relevant, politically speaking, because he was dumping a ton of money before this with his weird impeachment campaign.
Yeah, sure. Do people even... I didn't even know him for that, and I followed a lot of impeachment shit, and I had no idea about that even.
He was well known in California for that kind of stuff. He spent a lot of money on that, and that leads to the theory, it's like conspiracy that maybe he's planning on running for something in California. But who knows? Like he is actually one of the stranger candidates of the race, more strange than like people left wing's weird conspiracizing about Mr. Buttigieg. The big thing that needs to be debated is like essentially there are various things that could happen in South Carolina if some of the more extreme polling is correct and Bernie wins it. Oh no, that changes a lot of things. That it's not a discussion now if Bernie can win a majority past Super Tuesday. It's more how much is he gonna win by?
Sure.
And that changes a lot of things. In addition, though, like if Biden fails badly enough, if Bloomberg scoops that up, that might be enough to actually give him some gas.
Does Biden ever drop after Super Tuesday? Is that possible?
I mean, there's a reality of funds here. Like
like Biden is not doing that hot on fundraising, right?
Yeah, the reality is Steyer, in theory, based on purely his net revenue, his personal wealth, and Bloomberg and Biden and Bernie have enough. In theory, maybe if after Super Tuesday, everyone not named Bernie or Bloomberg drops out, maybe they can coalesce around one candidate. But at that point, you'd start wondering, well, why don't they start coalescing around Bloomberg? However, the other thing should be noted, though, like if you watch Bernie speak now a lot, if you remove all the dialogue craziness of weirdos who make money on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter, like Bernie doesn't come off as like a raging communist. Like,
yeah, of course. I kind of wonder why. I feel like Bernie would do a lot better, actually. He would just ditch any of the mentions of socialism.
Oh yeah, and this is I completely agree. Have you seen the Krugman and?
Yes. I have watched it. Yeah.
And it really shows to it. Like Krugman, for all of his failures, and Krugman has a lot of failures. Like he famously didn't think the internet was going to become a thing.
Well, a lot of that was like a 50-50, but yeah. Yeah, I'm aware of that argument.
But like on the other hand, Krugman is like a professional economist who's like won some awards. If you might have heard of some of them. And Wolf, like full credit, like he's a good educator on what he's trying to do.
He's a YouTube economist. Fuck Wolf. I don't like that.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
But like, for scale here, like there's a real argument about like what what does the word socialism mean, and what does that do? It seems pointlessly or not worthwhilely edgy, and I sympathize with that. As someone that almost cynically believes most politics is aesthetics, you really need to wonder if the democratic socialism stuff was required for Bernie's aesthetics.
Yeah. Or could he have just marketed himself as a whatever progressive and just done just as well? I feel like he must have been able to. Maybe not like in the online sphere, but.
Well, so this is where I've actually came around to it, though. You and I, because we've been internet poisoned by various things, know what socialism is. We've encountered the argument from people that socialism is when the government does stuff. But you'll note, what's been Bernie's strong argument about this? The wealthy get socialism, and the poor don't. And he's essentially said that he's basically turned socialism into socialism when the government does stuff for you.
Well, I mean, that's what we say now, but that's, as Democrats, I think we're okay with that. We don't really think much about, like, oh, yeah, sure, like, Republicans have been using socialism attack lines forever. But do conservative Democrats and do any, like, independents and do any Republicans feel the same way? Because, like, older people are the most active voter base, and I'm sure there are lots of people in the crowd, maybe even you included, that have parents. Are your parents like Red Scare babies? Because my mom thinks that socialism is when the government steps in, murders everybody, installs oppressive dictators, takes everything, and then like kills people. Like that's socialism. It's authoritarian like regime. It's like that's it. And I wonder how much fighting is going to be done in the general over that characterization.
So I think the biggest thing that people misunderstand about the American electorate is people are a lot more radical than people realize. Like there's a terrible joke I remember that the fastest way to the election of the presidency is actually to declare that you will imprison your enemies, because that's secretly some sort of fascistic instinct that Americans want.
Lock her up, yeah.
But like, there's a key idea to that. We live in a very polarized country, but it's not people. No one's radically a Democrat, radically Republican. They're radically anti-Republican or radically anti-Democrat.
Sure.
Now you could debate how much of that is racial or class-based. And I think in America, a lot of that is racial, gender, religiosity, class-based. But fundamentally, secretly, Bernie's greatest strength is the independent stuff. I can say this as someone that worked on his campaign in 2015. That won a ton of votes.
It's the fact that he's independent.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't like discourage like I guess too many Democrats. Like, I guess my biggest fear right now is the schism in the party right now is such that a lot of Bernie supporters will seem like they'll literally never turn out for a moderate. And I'm wondering if a lot of moderates would just never turn out for, like, somebody like Bernie. I say that, but then, like, I know that after, like, in the Obama-Hillary days, I know that we came together for the general after that. So maybe all of it just wouldn't matter. Like, once we switch to primary mode and all we're focused on is Trump, you know, that's possible.
I mean, look, I really, really pull my hair out when it comes to the online communism.
I'm not talking online right now. I'm talking real life.
No. I know that, but like, they are correct. Like, the market will shift. And the market has shifted. MSNBC is a demonstration of that. They're bringing on more Bernie Sanders hosts.
Yeah, I thought my take on this has always been that, like, because I know that people get really conspiratorial, like, oh, the whole media is rigged against Bernie, blah, 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 blah. My take on it was always like, they probably just show people, like, who's the most popular because that's who gets, like, the most fucking viewers. Like, and as long as Biden is pulling number one, of course they're going to be more favorable to him because they don't want to turn off all their fucking viewers. And that if Bernie was number one, it would probably be the same fucking way. And lo and behold, as Bernie has taken over, that last town hall that they did with him, holy shit, it was like, I felt like I was watching a mainstream, like, fucking, like, YouTube circle jerk of, like, how cool Bernie was. And a lot of people, say for a few crazy comments every now and then comparing Bernie to like fucking Mussolini or Hitler, for the most part, people have been like pretty nice to Bernie in the mainstream media now. It's been pretty crazy,
Exactly. Well, again, the thing that's most valued in American society, above all, is not capitalism, it's not religion, it's not politics or money, it's your ability to win.
Sure. Oh, electability,
Yeah, it's electability. It's you could argue that's maybe some sort of capitalist influence on America, but that's it. The market, that's what people worship in America: the ability to accomplish things. And Bernie has done that. How many delegates has Warren won? Pete won. Steyer, Bloomberg.
Well, Pete's doing okay, but everyone else.
Well, compared to Bernie or compared to the national narrative, that's what matters most.
Yeah, for
to
sure.
People, like fundamentally, I think Bloomberg would be a much stronger candidate if he had participated in the first 4 states.
Yeah, I don't know why that seems like that seems so weird that he didn't. I don't understand.
I mean, it was purely the disorganization. Like he was not prepared for it. He decided it on whim. That's it.
Oh. Well.
Do you remember way back, almost a year ago now, when Mr. Starbucks was thinking about running for president?
The CEO of Starbucks, was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I remember Zuckerberg and a few other. Yeah, I know there were a lot of people that were like floating these kind of weird ideas about it. I think Oprah even at one time flirted with it publicly. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just the reality of these things. You need to take these things seriously, and when you start ahead of time, it gets you victory. I am convinced, and I say this cynically, as someone that worked on the Bernie campaign in 2015 that is not working on it now, but the reality is Bernie's greatest strength in all of this, besides being an independent, besides being a socialist or whatever, is he's been running for the presidency since 2015.
Yeah.
And that's amazing what that does for you.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Like, for comparison, what makes Trump possibly near unbeatable in this upcoming primary is he's been campaigning for president a lot.
Well, I think he had officially launched his re-election campaign like a number of months, I think, after he like won office or something. It was like crazy, yeah.
Which is very politically intelligent. Like,
Sure,
it's
although
understood.
unprecedented as well, I think. I don't think anyone else.
Most definitely.
Oh,
But
it
in
was the
terms of
same
game-
day. I'm sorry. Never mind. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but in terms of the game of cynical politics, it's the reality. It's something that a lot of people are uncomfortable with. They're like, "Oh, I don't want to go and do politicking. I'm not here to do politicking." It's like, well, you're here to do politicking. That's the reality. So, I foresee that if Biden collapses really badly, it might give Bloomberg some more strength to his argument about like him being the ideal candidate.
Bloomberg is so bad at politics.
Oh no, he is.
Oh my god.
Well, again,
I guess Bloomberg is really Bloomberg isn't a test case in advertising. Bloomberg is a test case on how much the debates actually matter. Because holy shit, dude. When he said last time, all those women that signed those NDAs, they did it consensually. When he said that, dude, I fucking cringed so hard. Oh my god. Some women might have hated some of the jokes I said. Oh my god. It was like I felt like I was listening to a politician from 1996 speaking. It was so out of date and out of touch. Oh my god.
I mean, what I think is happening is the political system is rewarding more competency in politicians and punishing the less competent. Like, the reality is, like, Bernie's a very competent politician because for a variety of reasons, partially because he was in the political wilderness and not as an independent. He was used to building campaign infrastructure that delivered like clear and strong field games without having to be hyper reliant on the media. Another example of this is like Pete, for all of his failures, has a very strong media campaign. Like, that's essentially what built his momentum, and he hired the right people to do that.
Wait, Pete or Bloomberg?
Pete.
Oh, okay.
This
Pete,
is before, because before, remember, like Pete and like Beto were like competing in the same space a long time ago about like being youngish people who were like kind of moderate, kind of left wing, and one is yesterday's news, and one of them is a leading presidential candidate. Like, because so much of our system now is, I would call this a populist system. You might take umbrage of that, but I think it's a rewarding of competent politicalness. Because like people like Pete actually had effective media systems, they survived. Warren, if you actually look into who she employed and who she didn't, like, her campaign changed when she started hiring on a bunch of people, and that started to cause her campaign to fail. Like, I think that's it. Like, I could debate the esoterics of why her campaign suffered the most, but just the reality was her campaign was pretty not that great. This is a real moment for this kind of thing. Partially because I think that, like, uniquely, the Democratic campaign of 2008, when it was between Obama and Clinton, was two large campaigns that fought it out really effectively and create a large class of veteran political operatives. Most of the people who are doing politics right now for the Democratic campaigns worked on one of those two campaigns for presidency. It built a massive class of people who are experienced and trained to do this now. Previously, usually once you, like, by Super Tuesday, there was usually just one candidate and that was it. So it made much smaller politically competent classes of political actors and stuff like that. So now there's a larger pool of people, and it's much easier to separate the very competent politicians and their staff from the very incompetent politicians and their staff. Bloomberg, for all his failures, is barely keeping his head above water. With this much capital money, I imagine a much like Buttigieg or Klobuchar or even Biden And Warren would be crushing Bernie right now if they had access to Bloomberg's capital.
Maybe.
Through sheer scale. But it's what we're seeing is Bloomberg isn't that great of a politician. It's
Yeah.
purely built on his money and his power.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Well, what are your hot takes? Do you think, like, going into South Carolina, I find your take that the debates are important actually very interesting and actually, like.
Well,
yeah,
I think Nate said the guesstimate that he had was that like a debate is worth about 1 week of campaigning, whatever that equates to, is what he said.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I don't really know how many people watch the debates or how much they matter at all in terms of like shaping out votes.
There was a move away. Up until recently, there was a literature that suggests moving away from debates because they weren't that important. However, then Twitter became a thing, and social media became a thing, and now I think it's essentially this is just a giftable moment for people now.
Yeah.
So maybe not the debates are watched, but the memes are shown, like, the jokes.
It's a lot of word of mouth advertising and everything for.
Yeah. Like I was talking to a peer of mine who works on one of the campaigns, and basically he pointed out that if you're already leaning one candidate, you might follow the literature or the media of upwards of at most 2 campaigns. So like, let's just say we've got a moderate voter who likes both Warren and Bernie. Well, if you're Bloomberg, the way you get into those people is you got to get it next to them. And your ways to do that are either do some weird, like, I'm going to show up at the same rally as you do, making media moment, or a debate. And that makes sense when you examine it from outside of the political lens. That, yeah, in terms of the marketing, media, airtime system, that makes complete sense. It's why, like, crossovers are so important to most major media nowadays.
Sure. Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait till after South Carolina and then onwards to after South Carolina Super Tuesday, right? It should be there's 4 primaries.
Super Tuesday is March 3rd, which is a week from today.
Yeah.
So if you are in a Super Tuesday state like California, remember to vote.
Yeah. Yeah, well. Yeah, fuck, I don't have much else to say, I guess. It doesn't seem like, I mean, like, Biden is still probably going to win South Carolina. Bernie is looking to make a strong second place showing, maybe overtake Biden. It's possible, I guess. And then, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
we go to Super Tuesday, yeah.
Well, let's examine it from a narrative perspective. If Biden wins South Carolina by the skin of his teeth, does that look much better from it than if Bernie wins? Like, from the pure perspective of Camp Biden, what difference is there from barely winning to actually losing to Bernie?
Well,
like,
I mean, I'm sure
obviously
they'd rather actually win, but barely winning it is going to look really bad. But I mean, like, Biden's camp already looks so bad after fucking Iowa and New Hampshire. Jesus Christ.
I mean, I think what people have realized, these first four states, like, very little delegates are on the table here for these first 4 states. It's all in the media narrative that's going to inform the larger battles.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't really matter how many delegates you win. It's more about, like, how consistently do you deliver a media narrative that you are a strong candidate. It's probably the biggest thing that's threatening Warren right now. Like, she does decently as, like, a second placer in a lot of states going forward, but she's won nothing.
Yeah.
Thing, and that really hurts her. Like, that starts to add up to a lot of votes lost in future states.
Do you think that besides, is there room for anybody else to, like, come from nowhere, do you think, out of this? So, like, right now, it feels to me like the only serious contenders without weird brokered convention stuff would be, you've got Biden, I guess, you've got Bernie, you've got Pete, maybe, and then you've got Bloomberg. Is there room for anybody else besides that at this point right now?
I would still put Warren on there because she's such a strong second and third place finisher in every state where their candidates outside of Bernie and Biden are, like, they're strong in certain states and weak in other states. So there is value into being the third placer in every state in theory in terms of the pure electoral math. But, like, on the other hand, that's like, do you remember Rubio in 2016?
What about him?
Like, it's the same concept. Like, yeah, it's a lot of strong third place finishes.
Oh, but it doesn't matter at all. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't add to enough delegates. The key thing is, based on current polling, only Biden and Bernie are
serious
viable
contenders for
in every congressional district. Like that's important because at every little vote it starts to add up.
What
from now on.
People like Amy, what are they doing? Like, what are they holding on for? What are they waiting for?
I mean, like part of it is like you want to hold on for that random chance that someone dies, like, or has something happen to them. That's part of the game. Part of it is like, look, if you're already running on a shoestring budget, like this is just building your political career.
Gotcha.
This is just building your
well,
power
I mean, she's like fucking. Well, I guess all these people are like 80 years old, right? So
yeah.
I don't know how much
so, like,
career left they have to
so
build.
like, yeah. I think if someone like Amy is holding on for, I think she's using it as a negotiation position. I don't know what she wants to negotiate for because I imagine like being a VP would be I think Biden's kind of real. I think people realize with Biden, like the VP slot doesn't guarantee you the presidency in 8 years. So I don't know what she'd be negotiating for. But the reality is like these things are pretty profitable if you control the ratio of how much you're spending and how much time you're doing, as long as you don't completely destroy your own personal political career.
Sure. Is she allowed to roll this money into like her re-election for like Senate or whatever campaign funds? Is she allowed to do stuff like that?
I don't believe so. I think we're more talking about like her personal power and influence. Like
sure. I know that like you can roll your Senate campaign stuff into the presidential shit.
Yes, I wouldn't put money on saying you can roll presidency back into that, but I'm not an electoral lawyer on that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Interesting.
But why people like Klobuchar to Tulsi, all the also rans, they're doing this for pure like name recognition and power. Like, I mean, like, look, Yang just got a career for the rest of his life as a commentator on MSNBC. Same concept.
Is he actually?
Yeah, or maybe it was CNN.
Wait, is that true? I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. And think, like, if Steyer plays his cards right, if the second Kamala or Dianne Feinstein is out of the Senate, he'll have a strong chance to have a Senate seat in a couple years. Like, people do this for political power. The questions of being like, what does Biden do if he loses? Or what does Bloomberg do if he loses? Something like that.
Well, I mean, both of these guys are probably okay, right?
Well, financially, sure. Yeah. But there's more than money on the line for a lot of these people nowadays. Like,
sure.
Like Bloomberg's would have to try pretty hard to not be comfortable with the rest of his life based on his
I don't even
wealth.
know if that would be possible to not be comfortable. Yeah.
You have to try pretty hard.
Yeah. Like, I know you can get rid of millions pretty easily. Getting rid of $1 billion seems probably impossible. But...
Yeah. So from there, I mean, I could make like single guesses, like people like Pete or Klobuchar are trying to like build something for themselves after this. But like the senators will be fine; they'll be in the Senate to the last of their days. Pete, I don't know what Pete's long game is. He's actually, in terms of like what he might want to do long term, is kind of interesting. He seems he might just be trying to negotiate himself a position in someone's cabinet because that. I mean, one of the big sort of Damocles hanging over all this is like if someone can talk Barack Obama into endorsing someone
in the primaries.
Yeah.
No way. That would.
Well, don't you recall? A former presidency tried endorsing a presidential candidate in the Republican primaries last time against Trump, and they lost still.
Who was it?
Bush endorsed his brother, remember?
Oh, sure. Wait, was it an official endorsement, or was it just... I don't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's also his brother, though, so I mean, like, damn.
Well, that's true. But, like, yeah, in theory, one of the big ifs and who knows what would happen sort of things coming up is would Barack Obama endorse someone to try to stop Bernie, or to try to end them, or for that matter, like he could endorse Bernie to try to quote end the madness or something like that.
I seriously doubt Obama would take an anti-Bernie position. That seems insane to me. If Bernie was like doing really poorly, maybe after Super Tuesday, or like had like a clear if Biden came out on top or something crazy, but I don't think Obama would come out to be the decider to like settle like a broker convention where Bernie walks in with like 45% of the delegates. That seems like it would be crazy.
I'm trying to offer something besides one of the candidates dying as a dramatic changer of the electoral math.
Sure.
Like this is a equal thing that could change the electoral math in a dramatic way that we could theorize as a known unknown. Outside of that, I mean, it is an interesting discussion about how radicalism is in America. That I think Bernie's adoption of socialism, as basically the government does stuff, is an interesting defense of his ideas and a attack on people like Bloomberg. Like, it does make me wonder about like people's understanding of like narratives like that. And it does fulfill my own theory of like, look, man, words are just things that we use to describe things. We can make them whatever we like.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, if I believe in marketing and aesthetics, like that's the reality of these kind of things.
Okay. Do you think anything surprising will happen in the South Carolina primary?
I mean, if Steyer does really well,
it's an open primary. So has there ever been a history of like people switching sides to fuck with people? Has that ever been like a significant thing? And I know people always talk about how it could happen, but
nah. That's always something talked about. That there's no consistent history of that kind of thing. When there is, it demonstrates as just people actually changing and voting for the other party in the end of the next election anyway. It's like, yeah, occasionally there are Republicans who come over and vote for the Democrat or something like that, or vice versa in certain primaries. But those people end up registering as Republicans and voting in the presidential primary.
Yeah, so it's not people switching to do some weird, crazy games. It's just they're legitimately switching parties. And
yeah. Or for that matter, like they weren't involved politically for half a decade and they got re-involved later in life or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, hey, I guess I'll I don't know when we'll talk next. I'm going out of town on the 27th, and then I'll be back on the 9th, I think. I'm going to Boston for a few days and then to Sweden for a week, and then I'll be back after that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'll be out of town covering the Super Tuesday stuff. We'll see how that goes, and then, yeah.
Did you already vote in California?
I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to vote in Nebraska, because that's where I'm registered to vote right now. But I think I'd rather vote there anyway, right?
I mean, in terms of the Democratic primary, California is probably more important, but that's your call, man. You vote where you feel you need to.
Well, can you vote for one primary in one area and then switch and vote for an election somewhere else?
No.
Yeah, so election-wise, I feel like a vote in Nebraska is a lot more important than a vote in California, right?
Oh, well, fair enough, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't really care as much about the primary. I don't really feel like super thrilled about like any of the candidates right now, and I'd back any of them except for like Tulsi Gabbard over Trump, so it's whatever.
I watched some of your recent YouTube content about like talking when dealing with the lefties. I feel like I should, as someone that like, quote, I guess by the definition of some of the internet weirdos is a quote lefty, I should try to offer like, here's how someone with 2 brain cells and isn't on the internet 24/7 does politics or whatever. But I don't know if that's a healthy activity for myself, trying to quote debate you on politics. But because I think the majority of my politics comes down to is an understanding of leftism or rightism or whatever. It's all substitutes for power. Like politics and government are vehicles for the distribution of power, as to empower some individuals over disempowering others.
Yeah, kind of. We actually, was it an NPR piece? I don't remember. We listened to something very recently about how increasingly politics is less and less, for people, it's less and less about power, and it's more and more about like hobbyism. I don't know if you saw that article or that interview or whatever.
Yeah. I remember seeing you listen to that. I think I sent you a message about how I disagreed with that case.
Yeah.
Case. So I don't think it's hobbyism. I do think there is a legitimate understanding of political power in America, not as hobbyism, but more as in radical anti-polarism. People want to see power or negative power executed over their opponents or the people they disagree with or dislike for various reasons. So, for example, if we're going to speak cynically here, many people in America who are anti-gun believe in gun control because it executes power over people they quote don't like who do like guns.
I believe that like on the mainstream like stage when you've got like certain people debating each other, but do you really think that like individual voters are as driven by that kind of vitriol? Like it feels like the average worker like would want like some sort of like outcome that is like beneficial to their lives and not just seeing like other people fucked over. No.
See, I disagree. And it's less so than this. It's not seeing other people fuck over. Like, and specifically in the sort of like you're offering the argument that like, oh, people don't vote in their best interest, correct? That's essentially
well, not necessarily their best interest, but that like some working class dude in like fucking Massachusetts or some shit, that this guy, he's not going to be voting because he wants to see somebody fucked over. This guy just doesn't want to like lose his job and have his family get fucked and not be able to work and pay for his shit.
Sure, but for comparison, like, what if his job requires protectionism? Somewhere like that to maintain it, so it's like stays competitive.
But like he'd be more interested in that protectionism, not to fuck over like free market people, but just because he wants to keep his job.
Well, he's not fucking over free market people. Other people's jobs would be more enabled by less protectionism, and vice versa, or more selective protectionism in that sense. It's less people fucking over. It's people understand that certain people that they don't like it, political lives can be made worse, and that like the entire concept of a significant portion of the right wing politics right now is like quote owning the libs. What is that? It's essentially people with political power or with little political power in their lives realizing they can at least gain some joy and political gain from seeing the suffering of others.
Sure.
And that's through things like, oh, we're going to do the Muslim ban, something like that. Like they themselves have had very little impact or effect by quote the Muslims, but they know that the people they don't like the Muslims, and so they will ban the Muslims, and they will rationalize a political theory around why banning the Muslims is good. But I take this theory from Mark Blythe. Have you ever read or listened to him? He's got pretty
I'm
memes
familiar with
recently.
him. Yeah.
You disagree?
I feel like he hams up some stuff a little bit. He seems like he's pretty. He seems like he loves himself a lot. But he seems like most of the stuff he says, I think I agree with him generally. Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to the famous Johnson quote about like how racial politics work. Like, if you give people the ability to stand on the necks of others, they won't mind as you rob them. And so, like, a significant portion of the people that vote Republican understand that the maintenance of racial hierarchy in this country, whether they don't understand it in those words exactly, is some material benefit to them. It might not be a check in their pocket, but they understand it from a material way, that there's someone more miserable than them, so that their lives are materially better. In that sense, they respect and appreciate that.
Sure.
I think, in my perspective, is regardless of all the communist gobbledygook, the strength of Bernie or strength of any quote like left-wing politician is saying, hey guys, the failure of the Clintonian Democratic Party is it was more focused on enabling people to be personally stronger. It's like that, like the diverse boardroom, the acceptance, and things like that, which is valuable. But in order to do that, you need to give people who don't get that some sort of buy-in. And sometimes that's protectionism. Sometimes that's more ag subsidies. Sometimes that's college for their kids, something like that. These are not normal, hyper-libertarian, capitalistic answers to these things. But it's trading material empathy to some people to get material empathy to the other people. And I think, and you can maybe draw the lines exactly, this is how you give poor whites a buy-in so they don't completely hate or give reason to hate on poor minorities.
Sure.
But I think that's a strong argument to what's being done in American politics. That I think, unfortunately, there are many people in the Democratic Party that believe that all they need is just the votes of every college-educated person in the country, which there might, in theory, be enough of. The problem is significant portions of the college-educated types in America do tie their politics to racial and gender and religious issues. Like there are still enough white men and women who prefer voting Republican for voting Democrat. So unless you're going to accept that, it's delusional to not recognize you need to have some sort of redistribution of power in material goods and services to people in order to get electoral power.
Sure.
Do you disagree, or?
I mean, it's hard to. I usually when I think about political theory like this, it's hard for me to like look at the theory without. I like to have like polling data in front of me to like really know, because like one thing that I get worried about when I try to think of stories like these. Are you familiar with the concept of a just so story?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's just hard. I try not to like. I've thought so many things about politics that I now like think completely differently about. So I try not to buy into too many like grand narratives. I guess maybe this is the postmodernist in me talking. But
no, of course, the skepticism is valuable.
Sure, yeah.
I'm going into this with my advanced background in data science, and I'm not prepared to cite this or anything.
For sure. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Have you read Piketty, Capital in the 21st Century?
Nope. I know you recommended it though. Maybe I'll check it out after my Hitler book.
Yeah. Well, it's a good book. I think it's the book I think we're talking about. I think one of the great failures of quote like the internet leftists, the communists, the people who are no named in this conversation, their failure is they're focused on like the aesthetics of Marxism, which has some value. Like there's a value in some sense of that. But if you're trying to like focus on the economics of it, like even like the old Marxist economists in the sense of the 80s moved past Marx and went to Gramsci. Fundamentally, like Piketty offers a stronger economic critique of the modern system than anything you can read in Capital, in Das Kapital.
Sure.
It's a delusion, and part of it is unfortunately that your people are getting strong college educations and are absorbing their politics from internet videos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's probably more sexy to be able to cite Marx than Piketty or something like that.
Yeah, like Mark Blythe has a fair share of criticism, but the reality is, like, if you're looking for a modern criticism of the current economic system, his academic lectures are far more educated on the subject of modern trade than anything that Marx or Engels wrote about. That's just the practical reality of these things.
Sure.
And a lot of it is leftist gatekeeping. A lot of it is various things. But it's just a generational change, in the same way that a lot of right-wing people are still citing like Ayn Rand, when if you like examine some of the more originalist theories of like economists, it's most of them have moved on to Milton Friedman and stuff like that, in terms of where they're tying their theory for libertarian society.
Sure. Okay. Anything else?
Do you want to talk about your congressional campaign?
Listen, that's a lot of work. I'm gearing more towards a 2022 run. Is what I'm looking for right now. Okay.
Oh, of course. No. Yeah, no. The election is the election in California would be on March 3rd, and it'd be quite the task to do a write-in. Actually, you know what? Here. If you're in California.
No, don't throw your vote away on my.
No. Well, no. Well,
shit.
actually, no. You're right. Don't throw your vote away.
Yeah.
Don't throw your vote away. Wait. Yeah, you're right. That was bad. I'm sorry. I apologize to everyone. Do not throw your vote away. Stay involved in politics. Do not write in Destiny purely for the polling data or something like that. As tempting as that would be to ask, don't do that vote. But I am serious, and I say this to everyone here. Like, understand that like this is a wider movement of like people participating on the internet. It's still an equal and valuable form of like communication and socializing to sitting in a coffee shop or a fraternity thing. This is a network which you can build relationships with, but also like as an example, as we discussed, political campaigns off of. So understand, as I end this conversation, as people like Bloomberg have demonstrated, influencing is incredibly influential in people's lives. It's important. You can get far worse influence than from people that aren't Destiny. But keep that in mind, because people like Stephen are going to be running for Congress in a few years, and we'll have to be prepared for that.
God help us all.
I mean, like, look, the strongest argument I have to anyone when they're debating if they should run for Congress or not, like, look, if if your peers at work ran for Congress, would you be better than them, or would they be worse than you? Far worse. Like, how could you imagine if some of the people you get in internet debates and arguments with on the internet right now?
I mean, do you know? That Sargon of Akkad guy. He ran for to be a member of Parliament, I think, or was it a member of European Parliament? I remember in
European Parliament, which is
the EU.
Yeah, which is not as impactful. And Europeans are weird, and their politics are weirder. Americans appreciate a true, honest to goodness, crazy salesperson. Things like that. Our campaigns are much more populist and such. And plus, he didn't hire me as his campaign manager, so that's where he went wrong.
That was his big mistake.
Yeah, that was his big mistake.
Okay.
Hey, I gotta be confident. I gotta sell my services.
Yeah.
Well.
Okay. Well, hey, I love you. We might talk after the next debate.
Yeah.
And then I'll see you around. Okay. Yeah. Be careful.
See you around. Take care.
All right. Bye. We can probably agree that Biden had a pretty bad, lackluster night. Like, I don't think
Biden had a terrible